Think back to the last time you made a major mistake. Recall the exact words you used to talk to yourself in that moment. Chances are, those words were harsh. We routinely direct language inward that we would never accept speaking to a close friend, or even a stranger. This habit is driven by a deeply ingrained psychological misconception. We believe we require brutal self-criticism to drive motivation and prevent ourselves from becoming lazy. This diagram shows the physical cost of that habit. Generating shame visibly reduces the prefrontal cortex's capacity to sustain attention. Plotted on a comparative bar chart, this cognitive impairment matches the baseline for severe sleep deprivation. An inner critic actively exhausts your brain and sabotages your foundational resilience. This exhaustion originates in the body's ancient reptilian threat defense system. This specific system evolved purely to ensure physical survival. It is designed to trigger a fight-or-flight response against deadly predators in the wild. Modern mistakes pose zero physical danger, but they threaten your self-concept. The brain misinterprets the event, triggering a biological alarm and flooding the body with spikes of cortisol. Because this threat originates internally, you are simultaneously the attacker and the attacked. Self-criticism functions as a literal biological self-attack that forces the body into chronic stress and breaks its ability to handle daily challenges. We have access to a different biological mechanism to handle failure, the mammalian caregiving system. Mammals are born highly immature. To survive, infants must stay incredibly close to their mothers, meaning our bodies evolve to respond to warmth, gentle touch, and soft vocalizations to establish a feeling of safety. Self-compassion is the conscious act of hacking our biology by turning this mammalian caregiving system inward. In this diagram, based on researcher Dr. Kristen Neff's framework, we see the 3 pillars required for this process. The first pillar, labeled mindfulness, requires you to actively turn toward and validate your present suffering rather than suppressing the pain. The second pillar is common humanity. This involves recognizing that failure is a shared, universal human experience rather than an isolating personal defect. The final pillar is self-kindness. Here, you make the conscious choice to speak to yourself with the identical empathy and encouragement you naturally offer to a good friend. These 3 pillars provide the specific behavioral triggers required to shut off the biological threat response. Look at this split-screen data comparison of hormone levels to see the immediate physiological payoff. When you apply self-compassion, cortisol drops sharply. In its place, you receive a surge of oxytocin and opiates, the hormones responsible for making you feel safe and calmed. Over the long term, engaging in compassionate self-talk actively generates new microscopic neural pathways in your brain, forming glowing new connections where none existed before. As you strengthen these new pathways, the old habitual neural connections responsible for shame and self-criticism gradually fade away from disuse. Self-compassion functions as a physiological override, physically restructuring the brain to default to a state of calm. Consider a competitive athlete missing a crucial play, or a professional receiving a devastating performance review. In high-stakes environments, society trains us to rely entirely on self-esteem to survive the pressure. This infographic contrasts the structural integrity of the 2 approaches. Self-esteem is depicted balancing precariously on external trophies and grades. Because it relies strictly on external validation and comparison, it collapses the instant failure occurs. Conversely, self-compassion functions as a deep internal root system. It acts as a stable shock absorber because it activates precisely when external validation vanishes. Self-kindness is a scientifically sound tool for recovery rather than a concession to laziness. This intentional shift towards self-kindness actively restructures the brain's physical circuitry, establishing the ultimate baseline for lifelong emotional resilience.